Hi everyone, I'm Ashley,
And I'm Lizzie.
and we're presenting on sex differences in competition in cooperative mammals. So our focal paper basically talks about how there are differences in reproductive competition among females and male mammals, and it basically deals with meerkats over a 12-year study. So it basically shows that in females, females acquire greater reproductive benefits from attaining dominant status than males do. So that results in their competing more intensely, more aggressively, so that they can attain dominant status, as well as it leaving them to sort of evolve or adapt different physical abilities and personality traits that will help them in acquiring dominant status. So my first example basically highlights that there's such an importance of social order in female mammals. So as you can see, figures 2A, 2B, 2C, 2D all deal with female mammals and their probability of either initiating aggression or initiating submission. And that's to show that in subordinate female mammals, they're more likely to initiate aggression, obviously, because I assume that nobody wants to be a subordinate. And the subordinate females are more likely to initiate aggression than males consistently, as you can see, even from younger, juvenile to adulthood, females are more likely to, as well as the probability of initiating submission, which then shows, how important social order is amongst females, whereas the subordinates are much more likely, the female subordinates are much more likely to be submissive continuously than the males are. And you can see that as they get older, from the beginning, their youth to as they get older. So my next example, on this page, basically talks about how female mammals, female meerkats that weigh more are more likely to be successful in acquiring dominant status. So you can see that in figures 2C, where you can see that female mammals that weighed more were just more likely, you see that the heavier the female mammals were, the more likely they were to become dominant, as opposed to males, where it doesn't really matter. You can't really see a pattern in their submission or their dominance. So that basically shows you that, the heavier you are in female mammals, the easier it is. So maybe it's to show that they have to fight their way to get to the top, or it could definitely be an example of ways that they sort of adapt their bodies to be able to get on top. And so I guess my last point is that female mammals have a sort of longer tenure of dominant status than males. So for females, it's 31.5 months, which is almost 3 years. Whereas for males, it's only 17.5, which is a little over 12 months. So you can see that and I'll add that it was measured earlier on in the study that female meerkats were more likely to keep their offspring alive for longer, which the average was 17.0 number of offspring that were able to reach 12 months, whereas for males, it was 8.9. So that's another incentive to want to attain dominant status. So you basically see that with all these reproductive benefits, they're going to compete harder, fight more intensely to rise to the top, so that when those that are at the top are respected and treated with respect appropriately, because the others understand that they sort of fought hard to get there, literally fought hard. So now Lizzie's going to take it away, talking more about this and cooperative mammals, or specifically cooperative females, as it relates to science and social process. Thank you for listening.
Also found a secondary source, and that really touched on kind of the impacts of breeding and competition, but it also really talked about how the studies that have been done were mostly on males. So there's a lot of unknowns about female breeding and also female competitiveness. I think something that I found was really interesting was that females are more likely to only compete for resources, while males will compete for mates for breeding. And for females, competition is also more about their success of breeding. So a more competitive female will have more success in breeding. And also the idea of the dominant and submissive females was really touched upon in this article, or the research. And it said that the presence of a female dominant can impact a submissive and their ability to mate or conceive, which I thought was really intriguing. And also there's a lot of competition between resident females, and it can sometimes lead to like eviction of groups, like eviction of the submissive from groups. And I think that's really comparable to today's society, because a lot of times if like a dominant woman has friends that are challenging her dominance, then they just will like cut them out. And so that's something we see a lot. And also in female groups, there's a lot of ranking. And with males, it's more likely that they'll be ranked off of their size, their strength, or whatnot. But in females, it's really mostly about how they secure social standing and how they get support from the other females. And I think that's also really related to today's society, because women often are looking for other women's support, and that's how they gain status, and that's how they maintain it. And overall, it just really talks about how females will more commonly use social strategy to enhance their reproductive success in trying to be that dominant female of the group. So now we'll just show our works cited.
Here is our works cited page.